Welcome to Dr Joe Unplugged. This podcast contains general information and is not in any way medical advice. Obviously, we've got the Olympics coming up. Every 4 years, we're suddenly an expert in and interested in a variety of sports that, to be fair, a lot of us typically don't know much about and have no particular interest in. And it's fascinating to look at the history of the Olympics going back to 776 BC, originally to get people together. And I think even in ancient Greek days, people, even if they were at war, would sort of lay down their spears and come together in a spirit of competition. The Romans also understood the concept of spectacle, and the term bread and circus for the masses, I think, hails from those days. Probably not a lot has changed, and certainly there's a lot of politicians who are very happy to have photo ops with winning athletes. To me, it's fascinating to see what the human body is capable of. And we're all different. We are all different. We have different talents and strengths and aptitudes. Doesn't make one of us better or worse than the other, but what's got lost in this concept of equality and equity is that somehow we can all be the same. We can all win the 100 metres dash. No, I'm never going to win a 100 metres dash. Even when I was 20 years old, it was never going to happen. I'm not a sprinter. It's not in me, and it wouldn't matter how hard I trained. It's just never going to happen. So I'm never going to be equal to somebody who can run faster than me. But I've got some other talents and strengths, and we're all in this same boat. Some of us can jump higher. Some of us can do mathematics better. Some of us can throw a ball better. Some of us are better at caring for other people, and they might go into professions such as nursing, for example. None of these is intrinsically better or worse than the other, but they're different. So in this era of sort of equity and equality, we've lost the fact that people don't have to be the same to be valued the same. We can value the contribution of a whole lot of different people without them doing exactly the same thing or without giving every child a prize. But there's been some work done looking at why is it that Olympic athletes, and I think one could broaden this out to sports people in general, seem to have a higher tolerance for pain. And we know this is the case. We know sports people will play through pain levels that, really would have most of us either, scurrying to the couch or the medicine cabinet or the doctor or even the hospital. And we'll put the reference link in the description below. An overwhelming body of evidence shows that high-level athletes have a higher tolerance for pain. They may also have a higher pain threshold. Precisely what's going on is a matter of great interests. As one therapist says, elite athletes are just normal people who play sports. They have the same biology that we do, the same pain-producing mechanisms as anybody else. The difference is that they learn to think about pain in a completely different way. And I must credit Dr. Stephanie Davies, who's a pain specialist in Perth, who I heard her give a presentation where her theory, and I think it's got a lot of validity, is that chronic pain is a combination of physical pain and fear. And there's acute pain also, there is a psychological component. For a long time, and I'll quote here, people have talked about pain simply being a reflection of tissue damage, says David Sheffield, PhD, a researcher at the University of Durban, UK. But it's become clear that that is an inadequate definition. Even people who've lost their limbs can have what's known as phantom limb pain. On the flip side, Civil War histories provide anecdotes of soldiers suffering excruciating injuries but feeling no pain at all. Now, I'm not going to say, and these researchers also don't say, that they've got the exact answer, but it's good that they're looking. Best athletes are cavalier in their approach to exercise-induced pain, but conservative when it comes to injury. They've come up with a number of ideas. Inside each of our brains rests a built-in pharmacy of endogenous painkillers. Research shows that during and after a rigorous workout, the brain releases these opioids. We've heard about the body's own endorphins. The allegedly runner's high. More intense exercise strengthens and prolongs the effect. So it can also be that you start to associate exercise and maybe even some degree of discomfort, even pain, as some form of high because you know what's coming next. The science is mixed. We haven't got a clear answer. If you stub your toe, that's going to hurt, and maybe you're hopping around on the one foot, says another researcher. But say you bang your head on the wall, that would be less intense because your body has already sent out inhibitory signals. So your second pain, and you'd think that banging your head against the wall might be a bit more serious than stubbing your toe. So I'm going to quote from the article. While the science is young and research is mixed, some theorise that if the brain is repeatedly subjected to pain via training, it's constantly sending signals down the spinal cord and gets really good at reducing the pain, a phenomenon called conditioned pain modulation. Hence, the more an athlete trains, the more of these inhibitory signals the brain sends out, the more dialed in this system becomes. So the body develops its own internal mechanisms and strengthens those mechanisms for the pain not bothering you quite as much. And they've done some work even doing MRI scans on the brains of some of these people. Elite athletes also adapt psychologically to pain over time. Again, quote, the more athletes experience and push through pain in training, the less emotionally triggering the pain becomes. A virtuous cycle ensues whereby more training leads to better pain tolerance, which allows for more intense training, which improves pain tolerance further. Now, you'd also say these athletes have a goal or aim in mind, which is to get into the team or get to the Olympics, whatever it might be, and that's not going to apply to all of us. So this is not immediately applicable to any of us who've suffered an injury or in pain for some reason and don't have a particular goal or reason, if you like, to get over that pain. But it also says that there are ways, and if we can find a reason, we can find why we want to get better or why we might want to persevere, then aspects of this can be applied. And again, this is not saying that we should always be ignoring pain. Pain can be a signal that there's a problem in the body. So ignoring it at all costs is not a good idea either. But completely, and we know there are psychological factors, completely giving into it, thinking, oh, well, I won't be able to do anything, and by the way, I won't be able to do anything ever again, or anything I do is going to cause me pain, and if it does, that's going to be a problem, is equally counterproductive. So it's finding that way that says, almost like the no pain, no gain. I don't want to be in maximum discomfort, but if I can nudge and or push myself and develop both my physical capability, but also my mental capability, which is now telling me, I can do this. I can do that extra rep. I can walk that extra 100 metres, whatever it might be. And look, there might be some personality factors. So like with everything with the human body, it's complex. So this article, again, it's very, very good. For those who are interested, I'd really suggest you reading it all. One key takeaway, quote, in terms of prevention of chronic pain, I think there is a strong argument to be made that physical activity can be beneficial. And that really is saying that if we are physically active, and again, it's going to be at a level that you can start with, that will not only improve your physical conditioning, but it will help you with managing your pain. And that's much, much better than increasing reliance on medications. And we've seen, obviously, issues with opiates and the number of fatalities, particularly in the United States, but in other countries as well, associated with opiates use. Another study, the more physically active people were, the longer they could keep their hands in cold water when they did a trial on this. Those considered very active, able to tolerate pain for 16 seconds longer than those who were least active. Now, a lot of you might say, well, so what? Yeah, look, one study, fair enough, so what? But there's a growing body of work around this. And we also know, and this could be a topic for another podcast, that exposure to cold water can have a number of health benefits, and that can include cold showers. So essentially, what's our take-home message? So what can we learn from Olympic athletes? Number one, human beings are capable of extraordinary feats. Number two, if people really work at what they do, they can achieve. And you know what? Even for any of the athletes, whether they get gold or silver or bronze, or don't even make the final, that they're there at all, in terms of what their chosen field is, they're ahead of all of the rest of us. Not better people than us, but they're not equal to us in as much as they have talents that we don't. And the rest of us have talents that they don't. That's good. That's as it should be. But for those starting an exercise program and struggling to stick with it, knowing that your tolerance for pain or discomfort will increase is really, really good. And we can all take that as a message. Thanks for listening to Dr. Joe Unplugged. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, and share. You can also follow it on all the socials. There'll be new content uploaded each week.